So the first talk is on XRD mineral phase analysis for reservoir characterization and failure analysis. And again, I'm Akhilesh Tripathi, and not far from here, I work in the Woodlands, Texas. So let's go about this presentation. So what you will learn in this presentation, I have kind of divided into three subtopics. A brief introduction of what is XRD. I know most of you are aware here, but let's just touch the base. Importance in geological and petroleum engineering applications. And something I want to touch today is the improvements, new and faster ways to quantify phases. We'll see the use of templates, and we'll do a case study on that. So first, what is X-ray diffraction, or in short, XRD? So think of simple, you have an X-ray source in form of an equipment such as a Miniflex XPC, or a Smart Lab from Rigaku. And you will have an X-ray source. You will have a powdered sample. We are talking about powder analysis today. Only we are focusing on that. So you'll have a powder sample. It could be a mineral, it could be a dirt, or anything in the while you're doing petroleum excavation. And you'll shine X-ray on it, and it will move in a goniometer circle. The X-ray diffraction equipments are designed that way, and it will be detected by the detector. And then you have three kind of raw data that you can get out of that from this powder sample. One would be crystalline. So the sample is highly crystalline, and you can identify the phases. We'll look into all that. Or it could be an amorphous, which means it is not crystalline, or the third case would be, it would be a mixture, or we call it mesophase also. It's a mixture of crystalline and amorphous. So I'm trying to say, like, amorphous doesn't mean it has no use, because it has its own uses in terms of studying from X-ray diffraction. And the mixture can tell you a lot about the geology of how much of the sample is crystalline or how much is amorphous. Then next, let's talk about what you do when you get the data. It's almost like fingerprinting, right? Like how we analyze from our, like I showed here. Oops, it moved by itself. So phase identification is almost like fingerprinting. You have two different types of samples, and you can have a mixture of them, but using a database and a search match technique, you can identify these materials. So then you want to do a quantitative analysis. You identify, and there are semi-quant methods, there are whole powder pattern fitting methods, or in short, WPPF method, such as read-filled and direct derivation methods, or simply profile fitting methods, or you can have calibration curve methods, which are further divided into external and internal standard methods. These are generally spiking methods. The purpose of either of these three methods is to identify not only the phases that we have found out, but to quantify them, how much of them are present in the sample that you are interested in. So for that further, we need an instrument. The instrument could be a benchtop instrument, such as the one shown here, Miniflex. So what you can do here, using an instrument like this in Miniflex, you can have, you can also follow regulation. You can identify powder phases and do a read-filled analysis, which is a quantitative technique. You could also do in situ high temperature measurement, such as for clays, to see their behavior upon treating them. Some of them will collapse when you heat them, or you can do multiple samples. All this also, which is kind of the way I lead to, can be done using templates also, which will allow you to not only analyze samples which are in bulk, large number of samples, but someone with a less experience in this field, because otherwise you need quite an experience to do quantitative analysis. So that would be the major gain of going through templates to do these things. So benchtop models are suitable for all powder diffraction. I met somebody today who was asking about the difference between Smart Lab and Miniflex, and I said, when you go to Smart Lab, you could further do something like thin film analysis, stress analysis, or pole figure analysis. But with the smaller instruments such as benchtop, your powder needs can be completely fulfilled. We have another series of equipment in between the larger and the shorter, Miniflex XPC for geological, cement, metal mining samples. But the main idea here is automation, something that you can utilize templates to do. And in this little video, I've seen here, you can put a lot of samples. So as you can see in this, a robot you can put, for example, 24 sample or a lot higher number of samples using an automation, and then using a template, you can analyze them one by one in this, as shown in this video. And this all, almost I would say, all you need to do is put your different amount of sample, and from data collection to analysis is all an automated processes. Okay, so let's move to the second topic, role in reservoir characterization and failure analysis. So what is reservoir characterization? It's the quantification of mineral phases in a reservoir. We want to find the bulk and clay mineralogy of reservoir rocks. So why do we need that? Differentiation between clay, carbonate, quartz. We need to know that because quartz, calcite, dolomite, these are defining my reservoir. These are quality indicators. Clays such as kaolinite, smectite, halite can affect the porosity and the permeability. So how do these two affect our overall characterization? Impact on reservoir porosity and permeability applications. They help to classify lithophases. For example, you can completely kind of make a diagram that this whole area, how is my lithophases, how are the mineral distributed, and that is affecting my, for example, petroleum excavation from these areas. So that's lithophases, predicts reservoir performance, and this assists in what we call EOR, enhanced oil recovery, and a strategy formulation. So for this, the idea is, for example, you bring the sample from reservoir, such as a clay and mineral mix, and you can put, this is, for example, a picture of Miniflex inside. You have 8 samples. You can prepare the samples. XRD sample preparation is quite straightforward. You have powder sample, you pack them well as shown here. You can put them and you can analyze them. This shows our latest detector, XPA, which takes care of very well some of the fluorescence element in the samples such as iron, which is kind of usually present in such things such as hematite or magnetite. And then once you do phase analysis, such as shown here, you can find quartz, halite, or something clay such as muscovite, halite, microcline. Then you pretty much know all the phases, and then you can do a quant technique. The one shown here is Readville, and pretty much what it does is, with your phases, you can build a model, which is shown here in blue, which is exactly lying on top of the actual data that you collected on your machine, the red one. And the difference is minimized over several cycles. So in this we use the atomic model of the phases, which is inbuilt into the program, and then you can get pretty much the idea of how much phases in what amount they are present. So that's a straight analysis, quantitative analysis that you can do. So let's switch the topic to the next one. How about role in failure analysis? So what we want to achieve in failure analysis, analyzing scale deposit and corrosion products, identifying causes of equipment or formation damage, supporting maintenance and prevention strategies. To understand failures, XRD is used to analyze solid deposits and corrosion products. Common failure materials could be barium sulfate, calcium carbonate, these are scales, as we know, iron oxide, sulfides, these are corrosion products. So doing this kind of analysis can benefit us in terms of root causes of identification of equipment failure, enhanced pipeline and facility maintenance, and it supports our decision making for material selection and chemical treatment. So how do we handle that? Again, this is some scale samples I have put here. We usually get such scale samples, and you could again put them in an instrument, whether the bench top or the floor models, as I have shown here, and you can again perform a complete analysis. This is, for example, the third sample shown in the previous picture, and you will know that how much magnetite, goethite, or siderite, calcium iron oxide, iron oxide, and such things are present in this material. And again, a complete Readville analysis gives you the quantification of this by this model process. And usually these are very good in default. However, some more knowledge is required to do Readville. And that's where I will lead to slowly that how can we put this all together in the form of templates so that this kind of analysis is done automatically for you. So new and faster ways to quantify phase templates, and we'll do one case study for that. So this one is, I'll bring this. Clay swelling in tight sandstone. Proppant samples, which is what I'll go into describing, is used in fracking. So XRD detects smectite-rich clays causing swelling and permeability losses in case of fracking. Guided optimal drilling fluid design, that's the goal. There are two other cases where we can use, for example, templates, reservoir scale analysis, which I showed you in the previous example. XRD reveals high levels of barytes scale in production tubing and lead to redesign of scale inhibition program. Or case 3 could be corrosion failure. Iron sulfide identified in separator deposits triggered reservoir of H2S, hydrogen sulfide control, and cathodic protection strategies. So let's go into the first one, which I said I'll go in detail and show you, proppant sample fracking. So first, what is proppant sample? Proppant samples are solid particles that are used in hydraulic fracking to keep fractures open in the ground. Proppants are usually made from sand or ceramic materials, and they are mixed with fracking fluids to create a slurry that is pumped into the ground. So we have to remember, this is something we are pumping into the ground. We have to keep the ground safe for future generations, so we have to be very safe about how we are fracking, and usually sand, which is quartz, is used. So there are some pitfalls why we have to be careful. The proppant fills the fracture space and keeps the wall apart so that hydrocarbon can flow through the well bore. Once you hit a hydrocarbon, a petroleum, it can flow through that without any seemingly getting stuck anywhere. So what is proppant sample's relation to XRD? The sample consists of high to low turbidity ranges to understand the correlation between the weight percent of quartz, clay, swelling, and non-swelling clays. So that's important to know about the proppant. Clays are typically seen as impurities in a proppant samples, resulting from lack of proppant processing at sand mines. So usually the people who are buying the proppants need to know what the proppant that they're supplying, how it looks like. The sample consists of high to low turbidity range to understand the correlation between weight percent of quartz, clay minerals, swelling, and non-swelling clays. Clays are typically seen as impurities, resulting from lack of proppant processing at sand mines. So clays, when wet, are typically sort of like plastic and can be molded and shaped, becoming hard when dry, causing swelling and fine migration. So a lot of people, when they're analyzing this, they want to know how much clay is there in their sample, because those will be the problem areas. So common clays found are smectites, a general class, swelling clays, and illites, moderate swelling, and kaolites, non-swelling. So we need to know the distinction between these three different kinds of clays. Example of naturally occurring clays include kaolites, montbellonites, illites, mixed layer clays. The distinction is crucial for comprehensive understanding and composition of proppant samples. So our goal is minimize clays and maximize quartz when we want to do this sort of fracking. So here I put an example of, suppose you receive this sand, and then you want to know what is the composition of this sand, so that I can, if this sand is good to be used as a proppant or not. So one typical way is, again, do the phase analysis. You find quartz, but you also find a bunch of other impurities, I will call it in this case, anorthite, clinochloro or clinosite, muscovite, microcline, calcite, and then we now want to know what is the proportion of this. So for example, this clay is 86% clay and rest is the impurity. Among them, there are swelling and non-swelling clays. And then you can distinguish them. But here is what I bring in. How to do this, because there's a lot of sand coming, and somebody sitting down on all these sand analyzing what is the percentage of sand or the quartz in it would be a huge amount of work. And again, it also requires some experience. What if we do with the help of a template? So here in this little video clip of the software, SmartLab Studio 2, which we are using in all of them, I show how this can be done briefly. So you load, for example, a good example or any good raw data of such a material like a sand, and you find all your phases, which is shown in the software. And then you will go to the read fill refinement here, WPPF, whole powder pattern fitting. And let's say you found all the phases, and then you will use a macro. So a macro can be created. It requires some experience, but when we can create a macro for you, and at some level of experience, you can start creating your own macro, which we will save it now as a template. So once the template is saved, we're good. And we'll go to step 2. Now you can start doing whole powder pattern fitting or refill for multiple set of data. So we load this template. It works well for a series of phases. Like we can select, let's say, I could select 20 or 30 phases, but just to show this video, I've selected 3 or 4 phases, and it's in auto mode now. So this is, you will see here, this template is running by itself. We don't need to do anything. Template follows a sequence of what are the parameters that I'm going to refine first: scale, lattice profile, texture. And it's going through, and you'll see it has to run in a sequence that is set up, which gives consistent result. So you check the template first for a number of samples, and then you know if this template is consistent, and then this can be utilized. So once the template does it, you have lots of results together to look into it, and that's what I'm going to show. Configure WPPF result, and you can see here there's a lot of results that now you can see. So there's sample P11, P12, and a lot of them can be well understood that, okay, the quartz is over 90%, so I'm going to take these samples. The quartz is below 90%, so I'm going to reject these samples. So in this way, you know, even a beginner user with the help of templates can analyze a lot of samples carefully and give results to the person asking. One more, so we have another suite of software called EasyX, which is particularly designed for such a purpose. This software, you can, as the name suggests, you can simply put the template, and it is able to analyze lots of data at a point of time. So I believe with this presentation, you learned XRD is essential for both reservoir evaluation and troubleshooting, helps in optimizing production and minimizing risks. It could be an integral part of modern petrotechnical workflows. It enhances geological understanding and operational safety, offers reliable data for better decision-making in exploration and production. The use of templates allow extensive data analysis and the creation of effective comparative charts in a very short time. Takeaway: incorporating XRD into your workflow can significantly reduce risk, optimize performance, and enhance asset longevity. Well, I thank you all for and appreciate your time and interest. We value your insights. Good.